Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to see all of you here. Thank you for joining us on a little field trip this morning. We hope that's okay. You're able to get out of the office a little bit, and I will tell you, it's a lot warmer than we kind of thought it was going to be a couple days ago. So we're pleased with that. We welcome you to Antelope Island. We know we've got a live stream that may or may not be working, and so we're recording this as well. So we'll be able to share it when we get back to the mainland. I'm going to talk in just a moment about why we chose this location, but let me start here. As we have an opportunity to roll out the budget, I just want to begin by thanking our team, Sophia DeCaro, the director of the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, and her entire team. It's really impossible to convey to everyone listening and paying attention how much work goes into preparing a budget like this. Literally thousands of hours that people have dedicated, pulling all-nighters, trying to get everything ready for the unveiling this morning, and we so appreciate their work. We also recognize and acknowledge legislators and the critical role that they play constitutionally in putting a budget together. We have a constitutional duty to propose a budget, and then they have a duty to actually pass a budget, and it's an enormous amount of work. We appreciate their help in all that they do. We've worked very closely with the Legislative Fiscal Analyst's Office, and we're thankful for them. We recognize Representative Tim Hawks, who is here with us today. Representative, thank you for joining us. He is, as I would say, an expert on all things related to the Great Salt Lake, and we appreciate his advocacy over many years and the important legislation that he's working on right now, and we're excited to have him join us. We're very blessed in the state of Utah. You'll see from the budget today that we have a solid budget, in large part because our economy is doing so well, because the people of Utah have been so successful over the past year, and we acknowledge that. As public servants, as politicians, we love to take credit for all the good things that are happening. It's a natural thing to do. We have the best economy in the country. We have the second lowest unemployment in the nation. We have so many great things happening, leading the nation in job growth and GDP growth. All of those things that we're all very proud of. But I've been focusing and reflecting over the past few months, especially on the decisions that were made before we were in these positions, before any of the current legislature was elected, before I had an opportunity to serve as governor and Lieutenant Governor Henderson to serve in these capacities. And not just the decisions that were made 10 years ago, but the decisions that were made 20 and 50, 150 years ago that made it possible for us to have these successes. We are the beneficiaries of incredible sacrifices and decisions that were made. We really can't take credit for what's happening today. Those wheels were put in motion many years ago. And it's led me to ask the question, what are we doing? What are the sacrifices that we're making today? What are the important decisions that we're making today to make sure that 50 years from now, our grandchildren and those that are coming after us have the opportunity to stand at a podium like this and say, we have the best economy in the country, and we have a very high quality of life, and we have enough water to do the things that we need to do. And so as we talk about our proposal today and recognize that that's what it is a proposal, I hope people will pay attention to that thread, the decisions we're making today that will benefit future generations. And really, there are three areas where I think we will do that. The first is by investing in our people. So you're going to hear a tremendous amount about investment in our people. That comes in the way we invest in education, the way we invest in upskilling our workers, the way we invest in giving back to those that are struggling in our communities. You will also see us invest in infrastructure. We know that infrastructure is the key. Again, we're benefiting from developments that were made, infrastructure investments that were made many years ago, and we have to make sure that we are making those same investments, that we have the water infrastructure we need, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. And then finally, we make a financial investment by not overspending, by not borrowing money when we don't have to. We are going to pay down debt in this budget, and we're going to prepay some obligations, or propose to prepay some obligations, so that we aren't putting the burden of our needs and wants today on future generations. That will also free up bonding capacity for future generations if there are very important projects that they need to do when we're no longer in office. And will also save them lots of money, as they don't have to pay the debt on those obligations moving forward. So with that, let me begin by one of the ways that we can invest in our people today, and that is by giving some money back. I should probably start by saying that we have some significant growth in the budget this year that allows us to give money back and to do some different things. We have approximately $1.16 billion in ongoing revenue in both the general and education funds, with another $1.87 billion in growth in one-time monies from the general fund and education funds that we are able to implement in this budget. Now, I should point out that a significant chunk of this, about 40%, is mandated by law to pay for certain things like education, social services, reserve fund deposits. So 40% of the budget right off the top is earmarked for all of those different things. I will also point out that this will allow us to have the largest rainy day funds, the largest savings funds in our state's history, and we're excited about that as well, as we're prepared for difficult things that may come in the future. Now, as a result of this very healthy budget, we are recommending a $160 million tax cut in the form of a refundable grocery tax credit. Now, there are a couple tax proposals that have been floating around out there. One is to just remove the sales tax on food, and the other one is to reduce the income tax. Both of those are very valid proposals. They're good proposals. There are some positives to both of them. We think there are some negatives to both of them as well, and we believe that a refundable grocery tax credit is actually the best of both worlds. We're very concerned about inflation, and specifically concerned about the way inflation impacts our middle and lower income folks in the state of Utah, especially families. This is a proposal that will benefit families with children. The bigger the family, the more the benefit. This refundable tax credit, this refundable grocery tax credit, if I just want to point out a couple scenarios, and we have a chart here that lays that out a little bit. I'll give you two different scenarios and why we think that this is a better way to go. The first one is a larger family. We have many of those in Utah. So imagine 2 parents and 6 kids, a family of 8, making $100,000 a year. Under our proposal, this family would receive a tax credit of a $400 benefit. If we had just removed the sales tax on food, they would have received a benefit of $85, and Let me get this right. I was looking at the wrong numbers. I was giving the second scenario first. Let me back up and give you the first scenario. Okay. Cutting the food tax would result in a $185 benefit for this two-parent household with 6 kids, while our proposed grocery tax credit would provide a benefit of $400. Now, for a single parent with 2 children making $20,000 a year, so this is a single mom, 2 kids, really struggling, only $20,000 a year, cutting the food tax rate would provide that family an extra $85 a year, while our grocery tax credit would provide a $240 benefit. And of course, that family would not receive anything from an income tax decrease because they do not pay any income tax. So as we see food costs rising, again, large families with less income are greatly impacted. You don't have a choice whether or not to buy food. As food taxes go up, you still have to, or the price of food goes up, you still have to pay for food, and they are disproportionately impacted. We believe that this is a much better way to return money to those people who need it most here in our state. Now, Let me switch gears a little bit to infrastructure and why we brought you all here to this place as we launch into where we think we should be spending our money. We all know, thanks to you, we were able to get the message out that this last year we faced a significant drought. You will also notice that we don't have any snow out here right now, although thankfully we have some in the forecast for later this week. As you were driving out here, you saw those lake levels and how low they were. Of course, you can see in the background how low those lake levels are right now. You can see how dramatically the Great Salt Lake has changed over time. We have a chart here that some of you have seen already, from its record high lake levels in 1986 to its historic lows today. The Great Salt Lake is one of the most important ecosystems in our state. Every year, 10 million migratory birds flock to the lake, as do thousands of boaters and hunters for recreation. In addition, the lake contributes $1.3 billion to our state's economy. The Great Salt Lake is an indispensable natural resource, and we must protect this lake and the wetlands that surround it. And that is why we are proposing $45 million on top of the $5 million that the legislature has already invested to preserve the Great Salt Lake. We're also proposing an additional $600,000 to update the lake's management plan, which would dedicate a total of $51 million towards protecting this treasure. Now, this investment in the Great Salt Lake is just part of our $420 million proposed investment into water infrastructure, planning, and management that is on top of a previously appropriated $100 million. So if you're keeping track, in total, that's over $500 million in investing to make sure that we are managing our water resources wisely and safeguarding this most precious resource. Now, it's no secret that we are also the fastest growing state in the nation, and we have to mitigate those impacts of growth on our air quality, transportation, and housing. Through innovations, fortunately, and we appreciate businesses and others that have invested so heavily, we've been able to improve our air quality in this state despite our growing population. But we have to continue to be vigilant in this effort, confronting the effects of inversions as we enter inversion season. As a result, we're proposing $4.7 million to expand the state's air quality monitoring network along the Wasatch Front. We are also encouraging remote work on bad air quality days and significant investment into rural electric vehicle charging stations. And as you all have reported on, last year we received approval from the legislature to bond for the double tracking of Front Runner. We are proposing that instead of moving forward with that bond, that we pay cash and we move forward quickly with getting the double tracking of Front Runner done, which will help to increase ridership and improve our air quality, getting cars off the road. One of the other major challenges that we're facing right now is the increasing cost of housing. And so, as a result, we are proposing a record $100 million for affordable housing development and another $128 million for housing projects targeting our homeless population. We must ensure access to affordable housing throughout our state. Now, with that, we want to turn and talk a little bit more about investing in our people, specifically around education. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Lieutenant Governor Henderson to talk more about that investment. Lieutenant Governor?
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everybody. I would like to just echo the Governor's gratitude to Sophia DeCaro and her team at GOPB, to our wonderful staff throughout the state of Utah, and of course our wonderful friends in the legislature who work so hard to make sure that this is indeed a state with an incredible economy. They have over the many years laid a wonderful foundation for us that we're now benefiting from. As the governor mentioned, our budget takes a long-term view of the state and the people. And as a result, we are making significant investments in our people. And a large proportion of our people are, of course, students, children. So every single dollar that we invest in education, in our kids, it pays off with tangible benefits down the road. Benefits to individuals, benefits to our communities, benefits to our state as a whole. And so we are proposing a historic $976 million investment in education, with $556 million of that going to K-12 and another $420 million going to higher education. Now, let's talk first about K-12. We trust local school boards. We trust education to be served best at the local level, and we believe that local school boards and school districts understand what's best for their students. They understand what's best for their educators. They understand how best to manage their schools. So in addition to the statutorily required funding adjustment for enrollment growth and an inflationary increase of 2.6%. We are proposing another 2.4% on the WPU, a discretionary increase, so for a total of a 5% WPU increase. We also know that school fees are a significant burden on families. When they go to get their kids signed up for classes in high school, they're hit with a pretty significant check oftentimes. And we are proposing eliminating fees for supplies and course requirements in schools. This will save Utah families $55 million annually. We also want to improve outcomes for at-risk students. This is incredibly important to us. In the 2021 general session, the state created and made initial investment in a WPU program specifically for at-risk students. And we want this program to be fully funded within 5 years, starting this year with our investment of $56.9 million. We also know that early childhood learning is incredibly important. So we are recommending a $22.8 million increase in funding for kindergarten every year for the next 3 years. And we want to ensure that there is sufficient funding available to expand these full-day kindergarten programs for every family who wants to participate in it. Now, as for higher education, we all understand how important post-secondary education is to make sure that Utah's prosperity and resiliency is continued down the road. As our current labor shortage makes very clear, we need to expand opportunities for workers to retrain and to upskill. So our budget includes $9.4 million for technical education and $5 million for rural community college expansion. We're also recommending $120 million to the Higher Education and Technical Colleges Capital Projects Fund. These investments will keep our economy strong. They will keep our people well prepared for the jobs of the future as well. Now, one other issue that we're very concerned about in higher education is the mental health resources available on our college campuses. In 2019, there was a study from the American College Health Association National College Health Assessment. And this study found that 57.8% of students in Utah's public institutions felt things were hopeless in the last 12 months. Now, this was before the global pandemic hit. So we're very concerned about this. And as a result, we're recommending $3 million in funding for mobile crisis units and system-wide peer-to-peer counseling. We truly believe that all students should have access to the mental health services that they need in order to succeed. We know that this has been a really difficult time for our educators in K-12 and in higher education. And we want to express our gratitude to our educators and hope that this budget shows our support for what they do. The last few items that I want to touch on are regarding government efficiency. We recognize the important work of the state, and we need to make sure that our government, our state government, is more user-friendly for the public. And we're going to be ensuring this in 3 different ways. Part of this requires reorganizing our departments, which is what we've been doing this year. We will continue to do this to a degree in the coming year. Part of this also requires major investments in technology and in buildings that are long overdue. And part of this also requires recruiting and retraining good people to serve the public. So as a result, we are recommending a 3.5% cost of living increase for all state employees, along with additional increases for positions whose current median salaries are most significantly under market. Now, this targeted funding is incredibly important. We have some positions, some employee classifications in the state that are well below market, and the targeted funding will help us bring those specific positions up where they need to be, where we can be more competitive. These positions include psychiatric technicians at the state hospital, microbiologists in the Department of Health, and law enforcement and correctional officers. In order for state government to run efficiently, in order for us to serve the public in the way that we want to, in the way that we need to continually innovate and improve, and that's what we are proposing in this budget. Thank you very much, Governor.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's so much more in this budget than we have time to flesh out for you right now, but these are some of our high-level priorities. Grounded in our One Utah roadmap, this is a budget that reflects our conservative values by investing in our people, expanding education opportunities, and especially supporting families. It's a budget that improves state government and builds infrastructure that will last for decades, and it's a budget that works for Utah today and will serve generations to come. We would invite the public to access this budget through links on our website. That website can be found at gopb.utah.gov. That's for the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, gopb.utah.gov. And to reach out with questions or comments at gopb@utah.gov. I want to thank the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget for their painstaking work and their many sleepless nights. And I also want to thank the legislature for helping us advance these ambitious goals. And with that, we're happy to take some questions. Please, man.
Governor, why did you decide against eliminating the sales tax on food? Lower income advocates for the poor say that a food tax credit doesn't necessarily cut it like just eliminating it would.
Sure. Well, there's a couple things that I think are important to point out in this one, Ben. First of all, as you can see from the graphs, and we have some others that I know that we've shared with you, this proposal is much more generous. This will actually give a much larger benefit to the poor than they would get just from eliminating the sales tax on food. So that's one reason. One of the reasons that I know that some of the advocates may not be as excited about it is because two reasons. One, it may require people to file their income taxes, and we do have some people that don't file income taxes. And two, the ability to get it immediately or more often instead of just once a year. Those are challenges that we're working to overcome. We're exploring the possibility of making this available quarterly to those who need it, and as well as making it possible using the data and the touch points with the Department of Workforce Services to be able to distribute this credit without having people file for it. So we can work around some of those concerns that they have. And again, I think everyone would agree that they would, giving people $240, a single mom with two kids, versus $85 is a much better benefit, especially if we can get that to them quarterly.
So does this mean you oppose the income tax that the legislature is proposing?
We're not opposed to the income tax. There are some good things to like about the income tax. We just think this is better, and again, will help people that need it the most. And so that's why we're proposing this. We've met with legislative leadership. We've shared this concept with them, and they've agreed to take it back and let the process play out. I'm sure we'll have some robust debate, and we hope that if people like this proposal, that they'll reach out to their representatives and their senators and encourage them to support this idea. Please.
In regards to the Great Salt Lake, the number behind that, $46 million, is there science behind that number? Is that enough money?
Well, part of that money is to get better science. And so part of that planning process is to make sure we get the best scientists here. We've also been meeting with the federal government. Representative Blake Moore has a bill that he's running in Congress right now to help get additional resources here. We don't think $45 million is enough or the end of the story, but we think it's what we need for the next year to get that process started. So there's one part management, one part science, and then one part action, which some of this will go towards infrastructure, helping remove some of the invasive species that are preventing water from getting to the Great Salt Lake, as well as improving the tributaries that deliver water here. I will also note that as part of the $500 million, the $500 million that we proposed for water infrastructure, there's a large piece of that would go towards improving agriculture efficiency, which would reduce agriculture uses of water and improve some of the delivery systems there where water is seeping into the ground or evaporating, so that we're losing less water and more water actually makes it to the proverbial end of the row, which is right here at the Great Salt Lake. So it's more than just the $45 million that will help make that possible, but we anticipate that we'll need more in the future as well as we get better science and better data and understand what we need to do to improve this ecosystem.
One follow-up.
Yes.
Can you reassure Utahns that your administration is serious about doing whatever it takes to save the Great Salt Lake?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I hope that that's why we brought you all here. You know, we could have announced this budget from anywhere. It would have been much easier to do it a little closer to Salt Lake in warmer conditions. But we chose this very intentionally to signal to Utahns that this is a high priority for our administration, that we care about this and that we're going to be working with the legislature. Again, we have Representative Hawks here, who cares deeply about this place, has some legislation that I know he's been working on around protecting this ecosystem, and we hope that this is a way to signal. And again, we need help putting our money where our mouth is, and that's where the legislature will come in. Thank you. Other questions? I know many of you got your questions answered yesterday, so we were happy to give you a little preview of this. Please.
On the eliminating school fees, what does this all cover?
Yeah, so these are curricular fees, Ben. So not extracurricular. So, you know, if you're a cheerleader or play football, you would still have to pay those fees associated with that. But we believe that no family should be put in a situation where they come to register at the beginning of the year, and this happens to every family. You show up and you have a list now, and if you have multiple kids, as I do, as the Lieutenant Governor does, many people in Utah do, you're sometimes writing out checks for hundreds of dollars, even $1,000+ for those curricular fees. So that goes to supplies and curriculum, books, those types of things that have become very common over time. And the idea here is that we will put this as an ongoing expense. The state of Utah will pay this. Every school district will benefit from it, but then they will be prohibited from requiring any school fees, any curricular fees in the future. So this is a tax break for Utah families, in addition to the tax proposal that we proposed. This is going to significantly help Utah families as they move forward. And again, it's $56 million. It's a large number. That's well north. That's like 1.5% of the WPU. It's a big number, and hopefully that will help school districts, but more importantly, it will help families.
Does it take from school districts though? If you're cutting this, that's obviously a revenue stream they were interested in.
Well, it's replacing it, so it will be net neutral for those school districts. I will say, Ben, it will actually be this will actually help our Title I schools and our lower income neighborhoods, our rural schools, a little bit more, because if lower income families can apply for a fee waiver, in which case the district has to pay it anyway. This is the irony, is that the districts that can least afford it are actually paying more of those fees because some of our lower income families get a fee waiver, and so they'll get the benefit of this. You know, some of our more affluent schools in Park City or Alpine or those areas, they don't have nearly as many fee waiver students, and so this is really going to help those Title I schools even more. So while it will be net neutral for most schools, it will ultimately be a little bit of a benefit for some of our lower income schools. Anyone else? All right, I know y'all want to go get warm, so let me just conclude by thanking our media partners. It's so important to have you drive out here to show the pictures, to show the scene, to paint the picture with words, and to share what we're proposing. And again, we hope that if citizens of Utah are interested in our budget, that they'll reach out to their legislators and let them know. Thank you. Please drive safely. Stay away from the bison. They look friendly, but they're not, all right? And if you ever get a chance to come out here for the Bison Roundup, that's what you really need to do, because it's just epic. You come out here, you get on a horse, you ride for 4 hours, and you help round up the bison. It's incredible, and there's some great hiking trails around here as well. I may or may not have just learned that my wife hiked here with an old boyfriend when we got out here. So these are the things you learn when you come to the to see the Great Salt Lake and this incredible visitor center. We appreciate them for hosting us. Thank you to our friends out here on Antelope Island for hosting us. Come out and check out the visitor center and take advantage of this cool spot. It's otherworldly. Thanks, you guys.